Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Chapter 9, verse 20 to 29, Krishna is talking about two types of bhakti, sakama and then nishkama bhakti. Now the word bhakti means devotion. However, we have to first define devotion. Devotion just means where is my mind's focus on most of the time. If you're building a house, your devotion is on the house. If you're decorating a house, then your devotion is on the house. If you're loving your spouse and taking care of him or her, then you're devoted to your spouse. So whatever we spend most of our time on is what we are devoted to. Some of us like hobbies, we are devoted to our hobbies. In this way, this devotion has two types. The first is sakama. Sakama means I am improving my time-space experience while living on earth. Making things better, not only for yourself, but for everyone around, especially family. Whereas Nishkama Bhakti, the second type of devotion, is freeing oneself from time-space experience, owing to the understanding that time-space is limiting in nature. And Gita is not against Sakama Bhakti, even though Sakama is about pursuing worldly objects. The reason is because Sakama Bhakti still complies with Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. It is still a protocol that is following the injunctions of the Sastra. It is not hurting anyone. It is sincerely following for the sake of benefiting oneself and the family and the society. However, Sakama Bhakti does cause stagnation. It doesn't move the person forward nor backwards. Nishkama is doing everything for the family. However, it is only incidental because the ultimate aim, the ultimate goal is for Bhagavan. You know the difference? Sakama is pursuing worldly objects without thinking of Bhagavan. Nishkama is pursuing Bhagavan. How? Through the world. For example, I can only pursue Bhagavan if I have a roof. In other words, I pursue money for the sake of taking care of the family and myself so that I can study in peace. So that's Nishkama. Now this bhakti that we spoke of, which has two types, is divided into three types of actions. Because now you're going to ask, how does a bhakta act? Now that action defines what category this bhakta is in. So you should be asking yourself, what actions am I doing? And then we can compare ourselves to these three categories. The first one is Satwik Karma. That means any kind of action that is pure in nature. And this belongs to Nishkama Bhakti. So Nishkama Bhakti, pursuing Bhagavan, equals Satwik Karmas. And Satwik Karmas, every action is only for the sake of pursuing Bhagavan, as we said. This is called a mumukshu, desirous of liberation. Furthermore, if they do ask for worldly objects, it is because it is incidental. It is required, so there's no stress in life. Suppose they want to make money. Now, what does money allow a Nishkama Bhakta to do? Donate. What is donation? What is charity? Chitta Shuddhi. You're giving up the ego, the doer, and you're giving it to the world. What do we want to do? We want to collect it to ourselves. So Chitta Shuddhi leads to what? Purified mind, which is then required for Jnana Yoga. In other words, a Nishkama Bhakta still helps, but for the sake of purifying the mind. Whereas a Sakama helps for the sake of gaining Punyam, so that they can enjoy the world here and thereafter, like in Swarga. How do you know if you're in this category? There is no much concern for expectations of results. This means you can do things, but there is no desire to get a particular result. So you are relaxed. There is no so much concern. Why is there not so much concern? Because Nishkama Bhakta follows the scriptures. And what do? They do their best according to what the scriptures say. Now, if you do your best according to the word of Bhagavan, is there any reason to blame yourself if things don't go right? Because at least you did your best according to the word of Bhagavan. Whereas if I didn't, then there is a possible reason to blame myself. So in this case, they can relax because they're sincerely doing the best they can. Now, from the doer's standpoint, from the karta standpoint, the bhakta is doing everything as an offering to Ishvara. That's the attitude. So you're going to say, what is a Satwik Bhakta attitude? I give everything to Ishvara. This is called Ishvara Arpanam in Sanskrit. Ishvara Arpana means I offer everything to Ishvara because none of this is mine. I did not create the world. I did not create my partner, my family, my business, the money. Everything that we enjoy in life, we did not create. We borrowed from somewhere else through our own efforts. But our own efforts also came from our own food, which we didn't create. A farmer that we will never meet in our lives caused us to be alive and then to thus enjoy our experiences. And from the standpoint of enjoyer, that means the bhakta takes on the attitude of graciousness of Ishvara. That means whatever I enjoy, it's a grace of Ishvara. So now you're going to say, what is graciousness? Graciousness just means consideration of or kindness. For example, if you help someone, then the natural byproduct of that is you're going to feel good about yourself. Are you not? Yes? So this is what it means. Ishvara provided you the grace to feel good. How? By following the word of the Sastra. So 2 points. Ishvara Arpanam, which is offering of Ishvara, and Ishvara Prasada, which is graciousness of Ishvara. And does this sound like Karma Yoga? It does? Yeah. So what have we now concluded? Nishkama Bhakti equals Karma Yoga. So now you're going to say, why is there 2 different words? Because from the standpoint of action, we call it Karma Yoga. In other words, my actions are sattvic in nature, which is called Karma Yoga. From the standpoint of attitude, we call that Nishkama Bhakta. Why? Because one is only interested in those actions which are to be at one with the whole. The attitude and the action come together. That makes up Karma Yoga per Vedanta. Second is Rajasic Karma. This is neither spiritual progression nor spiritual regression. The first one provides spiritual progression, sattvic. The second, neither. So you neither go down, neither go up. You just spend a lot of time in samsara, getting ups and downs of life. And this category, number 2, is Sakama Bhakti. It just causes spiritual stagnation. It doesn't allow me to move forward. And as a person who is a householder, it is your duty to convert all Sakama Bhakti to Nishkama Bhakti. That is your duty. Because what happens is in Grihastha Ashrama, a family person, if you're in a family, is often we get trapped very gradually by using Lord to take care of our worldly accomplishments. Something goes wrong, someone's sick, or our health starts to go down, and we eventually start using this Lord, please help this body and this mind, keep it healthy. So you have to be very careful not to fall into this trap, because this is what? Sakama Bhakti. In other words, grow out of this Sakama as soon as possible. That is a duty of a Grihastha Ashrama. Why? Because we already spent our whole lives in Sakama Bhakti, most of our lives. So we have to grow out of that. Third one, Tamasic Karma. Is this going to cause spiritual regression? Yes. Absolutely. This is actions which cause harm onto oneself or the environment. This is also part or can be Eka Rupa Ishvara. Eka Rupa means my customized Ishta Devata, my personal God. Not necessarily, but it can be. For example, you can have a person who loves God, but then they hurt animals. And the most important is your motivation. That's all that matters. What is my motivation behind my bhakti? What is my intention behind my action? Patram pushpam palam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktyupahrtam ashnami prayatat manaha. Throughout the Shastra, both Sakama and Nishkama rituals are prescribed. For example, Nishkama ritual, one of them is Karma Yoga. That means everything I'm doing is for the grace of Ishvara, is for purifying the mind, thus I can assimilate the knowledge, Jnana Yoga. Then there is Sakama ritual. For example, Putrakameshti is a ritual to gain a son, and it increases the chances of having a male putram, a boy. For Sakama Bhakti, there are many rules and regulations. This means there's a ritual, for example, where to stand, how to sit, what to wear, what time to come, when not to come, what mantra to say, how to say it, how many priests should show up. What is the dakshina expected? This means the expected result. All of these protocols are there in detail. And if you make one mistake, then there is a process called prayashchitta, in other words, atonement. Atonement means I have to then propitiate, I have to correct the results. So the chances of following Sakama Bhakti are possible, but the chances of making a mistake are highly likely also. And when you do, then you have to correct it. And the general rule is this: the higher the benefit that you want in Sakama Bhakti, the more complicated the ritual is, the more complications there are. For example, an Indian wedding ritual is decently complicated. There's so many things to follow and go back, go forward, spin around, jump up and down. Okay? Because it is an important, you're asking for a high benefit, therefore there is a lot to know in an Indian ritual. This is going to now create a doubt. I just said, in order to gain a high benefit, the chance of complications increase, yeah? Now, if you're looking for an infinite benefit, what's the complications of that? Because infinite benefit is Bhagavan. So this means if I want moksha, then the ritual is next to impossible because that is the highest benefit there is. Krishna reassures us and he says, this is not the case because if you want the highest, that is nirgunam, chaitanya swarupam, then there is actually no rules at all. There is no regulations to follow, and you cannot make a mistake if you want the highest. Isn't that a good deal? Right? So this means if I want something that's limited, I have to be very strict. One mistake, problems. If I want something that is unlimited, I cannot make a mistake. However, there is a condition for this to be true. There's a catch, the fine print. Your motive should be exclusively on infinite. There should be no hidden agendas of finite. Because sometimes we will lie to ourselves and we will say, I'm pursuing God, but actually this is for the sake of something that matters to me as a person, as a jiva. That's the condition. So you have to be very honest with yourself. And the question will now be, what can this person, who is a Nishkama Bhakta, offer to Lord if he or she chooses to do so? On the board, a patram can offer a leaf. So you're asking, what can I offer to God to show my respect, to show my devotion to the Lord? A leaf, pushpam, a flower like this.
Even in the desert, you can offer a grain of sand.
You can offer a palam, a fruit. toyam, water, prayachati. In other words, a Nishkama Bhakta who is desirous of Ishvara, of Bhagavan, can offer anything without any rules, without any regulations. And what is important is Bhaktya Prayachati. He or she offers to me, Ishvara, with absolute devotion. No hidden agendas. It is entirely, exclusively for Bhagavan. Because what are you doing? You're not accounting the egoic I who is there to gain anything. So if I'm going and giving exclusively to Bhagavan, then that excludes the I. And that's what causes the ahamkara to lose hold upon the individual. And what kind of bhakta is this? In chapter 7, we talk about 4 types. Artaha, artharti, jijnasu, jnani. Artaha is the one who prays only thinks of God when there's problems. Artharti is the one who has a business transaction with God all day long. Artaha and Artharti are Sakama Bhaktas because they are what? Desirous of benefit unto themselves. A Jnani has done the job. They've already assimilated Vyashti Samashti Aikyam. They have no problems. So it cannot be a Jnani also. Can this be a Jijnatsu? A Jijnatsu is a Mumukshu, the one who is desirous of liberation. So what are we talking about here? Jijnasu. So Jijnasu equals Nishkama Bhakta equals Karma Yogi equals Mumukshu. This Jijnasu is still a Ajnani, a non-wise person. However, they are desirous exclusively on Bhagavan, on God. Next, Prayatat Manaha. Such a person's mind is purified. If we say purified, what does that mean? In the context of Sakama and Nishkama? Yeah, in other words, they are not desirous of what the Sakama Bhakta is desirous of. They're not desirous of worldly attainments. Aham Ashnami. I receive the Nishkama's offering, even though it is inferior. Why do I receive it? Because it is offered for the sake of Ishvara, as the end, and not a means. For example, okay, when do you love a pilot in a healthy airplane? Do you love it after you've got off your destination, or you love them while you're in an airplane? In other words, I only love the pilot and the healthy airplane's condition while I'm in the sky. Why? For the sake of the ultimate end. The moment we land, we don't think about them, do we? So in other words, the Nishkama Bhakta can offer whatever they want to Ishvara because their goal is exclusively as the end. Ishvara is the end and not the means. Accordingly, then Krishna says, I do not care how the Nishkama Bhakta offers to me or what they offer to me. All that I care is that it's given with sincerity. Sincerity to attain me. Me means Chaitanya Swarupam, or the higher nature. For example, does a child think which mama cheek to kiss, the left or the right, in order for her to feel maximum affection? Does the child think about that? They just kiss any cheek. The mama doesn't care. Does the daddy care which lap the son sits on, left or the right? In other words, no matter what the son or the daughter does, the mom or dad will still know that to be innocently loving. There's no agenda there. In other words, the son and the daughter cannot make a mistake. They can't kiss the wrong cheek or sit on the wrong lap. It is both only for the love of parents. In the same way, Nishkama Bhakta cannot make a mistake. Why? Because their efforts are entirely sincere to love Ishvara. With devotion, whoever offers me a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, that devout offering of the pure-minded one I accept. Yat karoshi yadashnasi, yajuhoshi dadasi yat, yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Now suppose the Nishkama Bhakta doesn't have a patram, a pushpam, a toyam, and you say, then what can they offer, right? Suppose they're in a secluded desert. So what Krishna says is, first of all, you don't have to offer any special object. There's no such thing as special, just like there is no special mama cheek. All that you have to do is understand that your body is always associated with the environment. What do you mean by that? You're always eating, are you not? Always drinking. So thus, see Ishvara in the water that you drink, in the food that we eat, in the air that we breathe, and on the ground that we walk on. So there's absolutely no excuse to say that Ishvara is not available. How else do you see Ishvara? Offer your politeness to me, says Bhagavan. How? Through the shopkeeper. Because the shopkeeper is in the form of Ishvara. And how do you offer politeness to Ishvara? By being polite to the shopkeeper. How do you appreciate Ishvara? As a common substratum which we walk on. By acknowledging the ground that we walk on. Every single day we walk on the ground, which is itself 5 elements, and that is also Bhagavan. What about the wind that blows in your face? That is also Ishvara. What about the sun rays, the heat that is shining on our skin, and we're feeling that heat? That is also Ishvara. So there's so many chances to appreciate God and immerse oneself in the presence of Ishvara all around us. In the same way, what Krishna is saying is, there is no one particular way to devote to me. All you have to do is just close your eyes, like Shinyi is doing now, and acknowledge the presence of Lord right here, right now. One doesn't have to go to a temple or say I have to, or even a class. You can do it right where you are in the moment. And this is also the beauty of the Vedic tradition. That is, Vedas does not have a rule that you can only pray to God in one place. You can do that anywhere you want, anytime, any place, anywhere. There's no special Sunday day. Next, yad ashnasi. Whatever you cook or eat, as you will tonight, before gulping down the food, as we do especially in today's age, acknowledge that the food itself is Ishvara, and also the digestive fire that will digest this food is also Ishvara. So there's an Ishvara waiting to consume another Ishvara called food. So this is a very simple way to acknowledge. This is why we always pray. I hope we pray before taking a dish into our mouths, because we're acknowledging the presence of God. Think about it this way. Since day one, we've been always getting resources, air, sun, food. So is it not justifiable to start thinking back, to start giving back? How? By appreciating, by acknowledging the one who has given us and sustained us from day one. So this is just common sense. We're simply saying thanks. Next, yat dadasi. Whatever charity you offer, pause. In the West, we often associate charity with giving money. In the Vedas, charity does not necessarily only mean money. It means agendaless kindness. There is kindness, but there's no agenda in the kindness. It's just an innocent kindness. So whatever charity you offer, convert that puja means worship, into worship. Offer the charity as a form of worship to whom? To Bhagavan. Now how do you do this? How do you offer charity with worship to Bhagavan? You recognize that the victims to whom you are offering the charity to are also Ishvara. Victims of an earthquake, of a flood, like in Kerala or something. Victims of rape or something. Don't just go, okay, I'm just helping them out. That's good, but there's another level to it. Understand there is Ishvara in them also. So in other words, we're going one step further. Before we say, I'm doing this cause for the well-being of the person, what is your focus if you say that? Is it apara prakriti or para prakriti? Apara prakriti. Or you say, I am making money to support my family. Fantastic, but where is my focus? Para or apara? Apara. So how do we change our attitude? We say, I am doing this for Bhagavan. And when you say Bhagavan, where is your attention going? Para Prakriti. So we're not changing anything, only our attitude. We're not changing our actions, just where is my focus. So this means you're getting double benefits here. Because every time you focus on the higher, this even further causes the mind to own up to the higher, the Atma. Then Krishna says, Yat tapasyasi kaunteya. Whatever tapas you perform, what is a tapas? Austerities, yajna, upasana, dhyanam, karma yoga, any act of purifying the mind. So whatever tapas you offer to yourself or to someone else, maybe you're a therapist and you're helping someone else, or if you're helping yourself, offer that to Bhagavan. Because how do we often, what is our attitude? I am helping whom? Me, right? Well, who is this me that's being helped? Is it Atma? Is consciousness being helped? No. Who's being helped? The Jiva, the body, mind, intellect, the perishable Saguna is being helped. So in other words, we're simply changing our focus back onto the highest. Tat Kurushwa Madarpanam. Dedicate all of your actions to me. Right now, Shini is looking at a camera. She's seeing Bhagavan in the camera also. Like that. In other words, to offer your actions does not mean physically, necessarily, even though it is not excluded. It means in a form of attitude. What does this mean? I'm doing this action for the sake of what? Chitta Shuddhi, purifying the mind. Because Chitta Shuddhi leads to Moksha. So you're always thinking one step ahead. Instead of just, I'm doing this for the sake of survival. I'm doing this for the sake of helping a person. I'm doing this for the sake of showing that I'm a good person. I'm doing this for the sake of improving myself. Always think of Bhagavan. That is the lesson. Now you're going to ask, how does this lead to moksha? And we're going to answer that in the next verse. O Arjuna, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer as oblation, whatever you give in charity, whatever austerity you undertake, dedicate that as an offering to me. Shubha Shubha Palair Evam Mokshyase Karma Bandhanaihi Sanyasa Yoga Yukt Atma Vimukto Mam Upaishyasi. Suppose you're following this Nishkama Bhakti. You're going to say, what is the result? What will happen if I follow through like a serious devotee? First, we have to understand Nishkama Bhakti, Bhakta is doing an action, correct? They're always doing an action. For whom? For themselves or for Ishvara? Ishvara. So the word action, which means karma, has two types of punyam, because all the actions they do are punyam. So you're going to say, what kind of punyam? The first punyam is materialistic punyam. This means any kind of merit that gains one benefit on earth or thereafter, like swarga. Like more money, more success, more fame, or, for the sake of taking care of the environment. The second punyam is spiritual punyam. This punyam is whereby one's born in a spiritual family, for example, and then they get a chance to be exposed to the Sastra and find a guru. Now, this may not always be, because not all of us are born in a family who were religious, or they were, but they didn't guide us to the right direction. They probably told us something that we didn't agree with. However, it doesn't matter, because there's spiritual punyam can still mean I find someone in life that still guides me to the Shastra and the Guru. Keep that in mind, two types of punyam. So now Krishna is going to say, Shubha Shubha Palair Eva Mokshyase. Arjuna, you will be freed from punyam. Now, what kind of punyam? Materialistic punyam or spiritual punyam? Materialistic punyam. And if you're not completely free from materialistic punyam, then at least convert materialistic punyam into spiritual punyam. How? By following the guidance of the Shastra. And you will also be freed from papam, from demerits. Now you're going to say, how are you going to be freed from papam? Or why can you not get papam at all? We discussed this in verse 26 already, with the child cannot kiss a wrong mama cheek, impossible. In other words, a Nishkama Bhakta cannot make a mistake in their pursuing of Bhagavan. In the same way, ignorance of the Bhakta's lack of knowledge of how to perform a puja, a devotion, is not papam. If you don't know how to pray or how to devote, is that papam? No. Why not? Because I don't know. I'm innocent. As long as the mind's focus is on Ishvara, then one cannot make a mistake. And even if you do make a mistake, it is not seen as a mistake. The physical expression has little to do with the person's understanding of Bhagavan. So this means we cannot actually tell if the person is focusing on Bhagavan or their own benefit through their physical behavior. Krishna says, karma bandhanaihi. So the Bhakta has gone beyond the bondage of punya and papa karma. Because such a person has nothing to gain. They have nothing to gain if they do something good. So therefore they're not even bound to punya karma. So here's the order. First of all, Sastra says, papam equals bad. We all agree with that. Punyam equals good. Okay, fair enough. When the mind matures, what happens? Papam equals bad. Punyam equals bad. Why? Why is now punyam also bad? Or inappropriate or unnecessary?
Because there's a hidden agenda there to gain punyam.
Yeah. Also, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. Again birth, again death. Again birth, again death. Again birth, again death. Again birth, again death. In other words, it keeps the person in samsara. If I keep on doing good stuff, no problems. Life is going to be very simple and easy. But it's going to give me what? The world of birth and death. Thus, the person is free from both punyam and papam because they know that even punyam is going to cause punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. Next question. What is the lifestyle of a Nishkama Bhakta? So now you're going to say, how should I live to be like this person? What are some giveaways in my behavior or in my ways of thinking that would represent this Nishkama Bhakta? And then Krishna says, Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma. One whose mind is devoted to sannyasa and yoga. So what's your natural question? What is sannyasa and what is yoga? Because if I know both and if I follow both, then I am following the highest type of bhakti. So if we want to know, then we listen. Sannyasa means renunciation from materialistic benefits. This means the person has ended their desire for more in terms of the world. More success, more fame. I want to be liked by one more person. I want to get rid of my neighbor. I want to, do something that's going to make me more pleasant. And how does a person able to drop materialistic benefits? Inquiry. And also by understanding that no matter how much artha and kama I gain, none of it is going to remove the primary cause of all problems, insecurity. Insecurity is why we do what we do, why we accumulate, why we hoard, why we maintain. Why do we do that? Because of insecurity. Next question, what is insecurity? How do you define insecurity?
Fear.
Fear, definitely fear of what?
Happy.
Fear of what?
Fear of losing, fear of lost. Lost.
Fear of loss, yeah?
Fear of being lonely, fear of being rejected.
All of the fear of, etc. In other words, either I don't have enough or I am not enough. So what does this then do? Causes a motivation for becoming. Is that what the world is doing? Always trying to become someone that I wasn't yesterday. And when I do become, then I want to become someone even better tomorrow. This is causing punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, because this becoming never ends. So now what is instantaneously insecurity exposing? The person is associated to that which is incomplete. What is insecurity? Incompletion. Now what is incomplete? Is Atma incomplete? Chetana Tattvam? Is Paraprakriti incomplete? Nirgunam, is that incomplete? What is incomplete? 3 bodies, 5 koshas, is that incomplete? So if a person is insecure, where is their eye on? Atma or the body, mind, intellect?
The body, mind.
Why are they thus insecure? Because the body, mind, intellect is always limited. It is never complete. It can always improve. Either the physical can gain more muscles, more slimmer, more beautiful. For the emotions, it can always be more stable, more cheerful. For the intellect, you can always know more skills, but it's never enough. So thus insecurity means the eye is placed in the wrong place. So now what's the solution to insecurity? We know what insecurity is now, but how do you solve insecurity?
Feeling complete.
Redirect the focus.
Redirect the focus. Yeah. So apply a formula. Step 1, ask, am I insecure about something? It's a non-threatening question. You don't go, what am I insecure about? Because then the ego is going to go, oh, I'm fine. So just talk very simple. Is there any insecurities? Okay, there is. Okay, step 2. About what specifically? That's your next question. And you go, well, I'm insecure about I don't think I'll gain moksha in this lifetime. I'm insecure about my ability to make it. I don't think I'm good enough. I think I am not worthy enough of pulling through. Step 3, what is greater than this? Your answer has to be Bhagavan. What is greater than this insecurity towards body, emotions, intellect? What is greater? It's always going to be Bhagavan. Why Bhagavan? Because Bhagavan is limitless, and this is limited. Next question, step 4, you say, where is this Bhagavan who is limitless, who is full? Is he over there, or is he in this very body, mind, intellect, which is feeling insecure? Your answer has to be what? Pervading in and through this very body, mind, intellect, which is feeling insecure. Step 5. So does that mean then that I am calling Bhagavan insecure? Oh, I better not, because if I do, then I'll get punished. In other words, from there on, step 6, you're not allowed to feel insecure ever again, because that is literally saying Bhagavan is incomplete. God is lacking. Therefore, I am not happy about what I've been given. So this is what it needs to self-inquire. You look at your steps one by one until you arrive to logic, which says it is impossible to feel insecure, because if I do, I'm placing my focus in the wrong place, which I am not. Thus, it negates the feeling of insecurity. So this is sannyasa. Next one, we said sannyasa yoga yuktatma. Thus, the next word is yoga. Yoga in this case means worldly action. You still continue your family duties, taking care of your family very well. There's no change there. Nobody's running off to the caves, luckily. And you perform that fully and lovingly. So 2 parts, sannyasa, and the second part, yoga. What is yoga, Dao?
Worldly action.
What kind of action? Huh?
I wasn't falling asleep.
It doesn't matter, it looks like it from here. What kind of action, Michael? Worldly duties. Give me an example of worldly duty.
Taking care of my children.
Excellent. So far we have established Nishkama Bhakta has, if you want to be a Nishkama Bhakta, you have to follow 3 criteria. Number 1, you have to renounce worldly attractions. Number 1. What does this mean? I'm not allowed to feel fascinated with the world. You can feel fascinated if you want to, but there's just a loss of that interest. Number 2, Nishkama Bhakta still gladly, lovingly kisses mom, dad, speaks to people, doesn't run away, performs worldly duties, still loves boss because boss is providing for you. And number 3, Nishkama Bhakta's focus is where? On himself, herself, or on Bhagavan. And is Bhagavan away or in the very body-mind intellect? In the very body-mind intellect. So in short, this is Karma Yogi. Consequently, what will happen to this Karma Yogi? Vimuktaha. He or she is liberated. In other words, avidya is destroyed. Ignorance is destroyed. Now, does this mean that Karma Yoga is going to give liberation? Can Karma Yoga give you liberation?
Purifies the mind.
Purify the mind, good. Okay, then what happens next? Mam upaishyasi. The Bhakta's mind merges with me. We are not two. Now, what does the word merge mean? Does that mean physical merger? Like the Bhakta's mind is going to like dissolve, and they're going to come at one with something? What does the word merger mean? The notional distance of separation is dissolved. In other words, the false notion that I am away from Bhagavan is removed. Or that Bhagavan is away from me. That idea leaves. He was never away from me. Because Bhagavan is the very consciousness which I am aware. Next question. How do you remove a false notion?
Knowledge.
Knowledge pertaining to
Self.
the self. Atma Jnanam. For example, when a person lies and they make up false stories, how many truths does it take to see through all those lies? Many truths or just one? So one single truth after the person has lied, and when the truth comes out, then no matter what the person's stories come or whatever they happen to be making up, they all from there on lose power instantaneously. One truth can see through every single lie. Atma Jnanam can see through every single story or false notion pertaining to who I am. Or have you ever had a situation where there was someone outside the house, some strange noise, you thought it was a thief, and then you discovered it's a cat? I hope you had. Huh? Or a possum, maybe. Now, what happens the moment you discover the truth? Does that fear still stay or it instantly dissipates? So the moment I gain knowledge of the actual truth, of the actual fact, from there on, all fear instantaneously dissolves pertaining to the false notions which were causing me to feel fear. What happens if I'm looking for something and I'm getting really frustrated? I go all throughout the world on pilgrimages, meditating 10 hours a day, vipassana, you name it, all kind of Zen Buddhism that's there, all kind of asanas in order to discover the pen.
Well, somebody else has to point it out to you. It's very years.
And then, now, will I ever discover the pen by myself? If I did, oh, okay.
Self-reflection.
Well, if I did, I would have done it by now. Because who wants to? Because seeking is painful. Who wants to keep looking and spending more money on plane tickets? So the moment someone points out, excuse me, you already have what you're seeking, and then I go, oh. Now from that moment on, what happens to the search? Instantaneously collapses. No more motivation to keep searching because one truth negated every single action which was costing me a lot of time, effort, and energy. In the same way, what do all these three examples have in common? The question was, how do you remove ignorance? Through knowledge. So all these three examples, what happened? I gained knowledge of the cat, I gained knowledge of the pen, and I gained knowledge of the actual truth, thus negating any kind of possible lies ever again. So what's the solution to moksha? Atma Jnanam pertaining to who I am and who I am not. So comparing this to the Gita, what does Atma Jnanam do? I discover Bhagavan is very close to me. That's the first stage. And then what happens next? Actually, Bhagavan is much closer than I thought. And then next, actually, Bhagavan is really close. And then Bhagavan is the closest And then aham brahmanasmi. In other words, the notional distance through the three processes of Jnana Yoga, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, keep doing what? Removing the false notion that I am away from Bhagavan, from the self. And this is what Krishna calls he or she attains me. In other words, Jivan Muktaha. In other words, Jnani. In this manner, you will be freed from all the bonds of actions which cause punya and papa. With a mind devoted to sannyasa and yoga, you will be liberated while living and will attain me after death. Samoham sarva bhuteshu na me dveshyosti na priyaha ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya mayite teshu chapyaham. Last verse said, the Nishkama Bhakta will merge into me. Doubt. Does this mean that the Sakama Bhakta will not merge into me? Because the doubt will now give a possible picture of Bhagavan being partial, a racist. A racist means one who gives higher superiority to one type and lower to another. Which means that if Bhagavan is partial, this means Bhagavan has own preferences, likes and dislikes. And this is also going to give a question to how come very few attain moksha and so many fail? What's the cause? What causes this massive failure despite having all of the Shastra in the world and the acharyas are ready to help and the online videos are there? And the answer is, before saying, I'll say a story, and then you will extract it from the story. Once upon a time, that's how our story started, right? There lived a Bhakta who was extremely devoted to Bhagavan. And the Bhakta was one of the most devoted Bhaktas in the community. Everyone thought this person was the ultimate example of how to devote and what it means to be devoted. Everyone talked about him. He was like the example of the Bhakta. So this Bhakta, every single day, came to this temple and he said, "Oh Lord, I want to merge with you." And he just kept repeating this on and on and on, all day long, for months. Even when the temple was about to close, he kept saying, "Oh Lord, I want to merge with you." Eventually, the priest got really angry. It was like he had enough of this person. Not that he kept saying, "Oh Lord, I want to merge with you," but the priest wanted to go home, but this person just didn't leave after the temple closed. It's like, "Sir, you have to go. We're closing the temple." "Oh Lord, I want to merge with you." So the priest decided to do something. One day, he hid behind the idol which the Bhakta was praying to, and he was waiting for the next day to come, right? So the next day, the Bhakta continues, "Oh Lord, I want to merge with you." And this priest, in a thunderous Lord-like voice, says, "Oh Bhakta, I am very pleased with your devotion. I shall fulfill your wish tomorrow. Tomorrow when you come back, you will indeed merge with me, and you will not return back home to the world nor your family." Next day, the Bhakta did not show up. In other words, people blabber on about wanting to be with God, and they seem sincere. But the truth is, most of us are still unwilling, not that we're not ready, we are unwilling to be ready. We're not putting our best efforts in. We're coming and listening sincerely, and we think we're sincere, but when it comes to actually dropping the worldly limited stuff, then we simply cannot get ourselves to detach from that. In other words, when the opportunity comes for the limitless, for the unlimited, we chicken out and we go back to the limited customs of the world. So the question was, Why do so few attain moksha and most fail? Because simply most of us are unwilling to let go of limited worldly objects. Even though we pretend secretly, we don't even know this, that we love Lord, but when the real opportunity comes, we discover in that moment, I am not ready. Not that we're actually incapable, it's just that we're unwilling to own up to the limitless.
So when you say they are not ready, you want to say that they are not ready to detach themselves. Is that what you want?
Yeah, they still want to. The world still matters a lot, right? I've got something. I'm not ready. I'll come back tomorrow, right?
So still identifying with body, mind, and intellect, isn't it?
Yeah, which is obviously associated with the objects of the world. Yeah. So when we say not ready, it means I still am holding so on and giving so much reality to the world that I simply cannot let go. And we often do not know this until the opportunity actually shows up. In fact, Swami Paramarthananda, in his camp, once decided to play an experiment. It was obviously an experiment on new people because by the example, one can infer. And he said to one of the students, go around the camp and tell people that the Swamiji is willing to give moksha. So the student went around to everyone and said, Swamiji is willing to give you moksha. But there's one condition though. You gotta remain in this ashram and you cannot go back. How many people actually said yes? How many do you think? 0. The opportunity was right there, but the fact is the person came to the spiritual camp, they thought they wanted it, and when they were asked, they couldn't say yes. That's when the truth gets really revealed. So this is what it means to be still attached. Now, what causes attachment? Go back to the earlier lesson of insecurity. What is insecurity? Linking the I onto the body, mind, intellect. Now, how do you deassociate the I from the BMI? We're talking about the entire Nishkama Bhakti topic. Constantly devoting through Ishvara Arpanam and Ishvara Prasada onto the Lord. Because who's holding on? The Jiva, or the Jiva's Antahkarana, or the Jiva's Ahamkara. The Jiva's ego is holding on to the world and thus it's unable to let go. So how do you break that bond? Give everything to Ishvara, and when you receive, understand it to be Ishvara Prasada, the grace of Ishvara. That's the point of Karma Yoga.
I think you can still have things as long as you detach from them.
That's true, yeah.
You're not clinging to them.
Good, because we already explained it doesn't matter how many things you have, it's what's inside. So we can't now judge a person's garage and go, oh my, you got so many things, so obviously you're still holding on to the world. It depends your inner attitude, and nobody can say if you're truly detached or not. So it's not our right to judge another person. It is their duty to detach themselves.
But you can also test them, isn't it, by taking one thing out of the car. And see what happens.
That's true. However, but that's true. However, they will respond, but you got to give them time to adjust, right? Because it is close. It was there for a while, but very quickly people will adjust and realize, well, there's actually nothing in this object. So it's good to do that sometimes, because then you realize I am actually much stronger than I thought I was. The point is, give yourself opportunity to see if you're attached or not. Also in Saundarya Lahiri, Adi Shankara says, the moonlight shines on both a dirty place and a house, a beautiful house. All that matters is how you utilize that moonlight. A dirty place can use the same moonlight for what? Throwing moonlight parties. And the other place can use moonlight for seeing the light of Ishvara, appreciating Ishvara, bringing another thought of Bhagavan through the moonlight. In the same way, the same air is offered to both a saint and a sinner, is it not? They're both breathing the same air in the same room. But what does the sinner do? Uses that air that the saint is breathing to cause harm. And that causes what? A lot of papam on their part. And the saint is using that same air to breathe and do a lot of good onto themselves and the environment. Thus, the Ishwara's grace, Ishwara Kripa, it's a common word, is equally available to everyone. For example, suppose you want to build a house. Do you focus on building the walls or building the space in the house? The walls. Why don't you focus on building the space?
The wall can give you the space.
It's what?
It's already there.
It's already there. So in reference to building the walls, I benefit from the space. Now, after you finish building a house, that means the walls, do you have to invite space separately?
No.
So what does this mean? Karma yogi's efforts happen to include Ishwara's grace with it. You cannot gain Ishwara's grace. You can only gain Ishwara's grace in reference to the kinds of actions that you do. Because Ishwara's grace is already provided, thus I cannot gain it. You understand? I can tap into it. How? I can utilize it by applying actions corresponding with the Shastra. So what does this mean? Moksha is not Ishwara's grace. It is what? Person's own will. Why is moksha not Ishwara's grace? Because Ishwara's grace is equally available to all. Just like the space is equally available to all. Just like the air is equally available to the saint and the sinner. However, in reference to the actions that the Nishkama Bhakta puts out, they gain Ishwara's grace by their actions complying with Ishwara's laws and orders. And where do you find Ishwara's laws and orders? In the Shastra. Like non-injury, not lying, not cheating, being honest, following the rules of the Shastra no matter what, not compromising. By doing that, what happens? I tap into Ishwara's grace, and that is what we call then moksha. So what's the lesson? Moksha is 100% person's own will. There is no such thing as Ishwara blessing random people with liberation. You do it through your own actions.
Moksha is also desire.
Moksha is different desire, but it's desire directed to the limitless.
Personal expectations.
Good. Now, the question is, does Bhagavan have favorites? Are there favorite people for Bhagavan? Napriyaha, says Krishna. I have no favorites. All are the same to me. The poor man and the rich man are the same. The saint and the sinner are the same. Okay? If that's true, then how come some get liberation and most do not gain liberation? First of all, liberation is not caused by me. Me means Ishwara. Ishwara does not cause liberation. Ishwara is an impersonal principle, like air. The air doesn't make the sinner sin, does it? The air doesn't make the saint do good stuff, does it? It's just there, it's present. Moksha is the Bhakta's own day-to-day, moment-to-moment actions, will. In this way, mayite teshu chapyaham. The Nishkama Bhakta who worships me, implying the higher nature, Chaitanya Swarupam, Chaitanya Tattvam, Paraprakriti, Nirgunam, exists in me and I exist in him or her. We are not two. So in short, the summary is, moksha is not attained through anyone other than through your own day-to-day, moment-to-moment actions. This is the beauty of being a human being. It is all in your own hands. And how long do you go for? How long do you keep on going through this nididhyasanam? Yeah, when you die, then you can rest. So that's no issue there. Right? So just keep on going more and more.
And then we don't know, do we actually rest when we die?
There was once a story actually reminded me of it was a Zen master. The students kept asking, have you conquered your mind, sir? And he never replied to the question. The last breath, student asks, have you conquered your mind, sir? And what did the Zen master say? Now I can say I have conquered my mind. In other words, why did the master say that? Because the mind can turn on anytime. It can go the other way anytime. You never know. This is what humility means. Even though I know the Shastra, it doesn't mean that I'm invincible, because there is still a mind that can fall prey to desires through vasanas that come out completely spontaneously. Thus, this is a lifelong effort to the last breath. I am the same towards all beings. There is no one hateful to me, nor dear to me. However, those who worship me with devotion are in me, and I am also in them. Api chet sudara charaha bhajate mam ananya bhak sadhureva samantavyaha samyagvyavastito hisaha. Remember how I started this? I said verse 20 to 29, Krishna speaks about two kinds of bhakti, Sakama, Nishkama. What is Sakama bhakti, please?
Come on, materials, devotion to material, worldly
Jaga.
materials.
Nishkama?
Nishkama to God-oriented.
God-oriented only.
Yeah.
Okay. So this section is over because we've now finished verse 29. Verse 30 to 34 is the last section of chapter 9. Krishna will be speaking about the glory of bhakti. What are the benefits of devotion? What is this greatness of devotion? Bhakti can be practiced at any stage in life, unlike Jnana Yoga, which cannot be, because Jnana Yoga requires a lot of qualifications. It requires prior discipline. Whereas Bhakti, you don't require any qualifications. It's just like a child doesn't require any special skills to kiss mom or dad or sit on the dad's lap. They just do so innocently. They don't have to be smart. For example, Artaha, remember the four bhaktas, Artaha from chapter 7, Artaha means one who magically thinks of God when nothing's working out in life. As soon as that's fixed, they forget about God. So at least the Artaha is thinking about or acknowledging the presence of God, are they not? It's much better than not invoking God at all. Another benefit is terminally ill patients in hospitals are actually proven to pull through. They have much stronger mental intellects or mental to sustain their cancer or their illness if they pray and if they hold on to Lord, whereas compared to those who are not invoking Lord at all. So this means the mind is very strong, and you also know that how strong mind-body connection is. So if you have a strong mind, how do you have a strong mind? By constantly holding Bhagavan in your mind. The other benefit is the Bhakta can still think of the Lord before death, which means what? Their chances of a better rebirth are improved. We already spoke about the process of dying. The Bhakta doesn't have to think about the Maya and the three gunas and all the complexities. They just have to think of Lord simply. It doesn't require much intellect, but it still has huge benefits. This is the power of bhakti. The second glory is the bhakti appeals to different kinds of intellects. For example, if you are an Eka Rupa Ishwara Bhaktaha, this means Ishta Devata or customized God, then your mind will be subjective or tamasic. Doesn't matter. So if the person is tamasic, extremely gross, they still hugely benefit from bhakti. How? Because they at least get to devote on one single particular form. If your mind is rajasic, then who are you going to pray to? Vishvarupa. Vishvarupa means what? God is everywhere. So this kind of bhakta is more objective. The first one is very subjective. It's very narrow, tunnel vision. It's my God, not it's me versus yours. The Vishvarupa Bhakta's intellect is more advanced, so they're able to see Lord everywhere. So for them, they also have a chance for this kind of bhakti. The Vishvarupas are highly scientific in most cases, because they look at things objectively. They don't judge. They just look at, well, this is this and this is that, but there's no right or wrong there. Furthermore, suppose your mind is highly sattvic, then you have the chance of what? Arupa Bhakti. This means your intellect is highly sattvic and sukshma, subtle. In this case, you have the chance of Ishvara, who is nirgunam. The former two, Ekarupa and Vishvarupa, are Ishvara equals Saguna. The last one, Ishvara equals Nirguna. So it depends on the intellect. Now the last glory pertaining to the verse. Krishna says, even the worst criminal in the world can repent and gain moksha in this lifetime. If you think you've done something bad, you don't even scale to the worst, the word called worst. For example, you got Valmiki, you already know, Ramayana. He was a very cruel thief, stealing everyone, probably stealing innocent mothers and children, and yet he wrote the greatest epic ever, besides the Mahabharata. But anyway, what Krishna is communicating is every single human being suffers from some kind of guilt from the past. Now, where does guilt come from? Past transgressions, past papam. Why is guilt there? Why is it present? Or what does it do? Let's ask that. What does guilt do? It reduces the person's self-confidence. I'm not good enough. I'm unworthy. I'm inadequate. I don't feel. Nobody likes me. So guilt transforms into low self-confidence. Low self-confidence transforms into all sorts of psychological problems that we then hire the therapist to fix us. And sometimes that doesn't work either. And why do we feel guilty? That's the question. What causes us to feel guilty? Because the fact is, we do feel guilty. The answer is because every single human being comes with conscience. Conscience means ahimsa, non-injury. So there's a constant conscience speaking in the background saying, don't hurt, don't lie, don't cheat, don't take shortcuts, respect as you would like to be respected, treat as you would like to be treated. However, what happens is our raga dvesha, likes and dislikes, override our conscience and do irrespective of what our conscience is saying. In other words, we know we should not do certain things, but we still do it anyway. And what happens through time is this reduces our own confidence in ourselves. We say, I can't even follow my own conscience. I can't even follow my own rules. I know what is right, but I can't even follow that. And thus, I am not a good person. I am not worthy of being number one. I am not worthy of moksha. I am not worthy of Bhagavan. I am not worthy of friends. I am not worthy of being someone special. I am just a little person, and it's too late. It's over. So over time, this through the days causes the person to feel extremely judgmental towards oneself. In other words, you've heard the judgment day, right? One day will be the judgment day. This is not true. Why? Because our conscience is speaking to us every single day. Thus, judgment day is when? Now. Now. In other words, this nowness gets violated, and thus, because it does so, it then causes me to have a negative opinion, a judgmental opinion about myself, because I cannot follow what is clearly the right thing to do. As a result of this, the person feels like a fraud, feels dirty, and they're afraid to go to temples and visit swamis. Because sometimes what happens is the person knows they secretly know they're doing not correct things. So they feel like if I go up to the swami, I will get exposed. So what happens is their confidence shows it. They're like a little mouse, kind of like, cruising around the swami. They're afraid to approach, afraid to be themselves. Why? because their conscience knows what is right, but their memories tell them, I've done so many things that are dirty that I'm not worthy of being in the presence of that pure person. This is another reason why confessionaries exist, to offload guilt. Why do we offload guilt? In order to move on. In other words, guilt is a great obstacle to spiritual progression. Now the next question is, how do we then rid ourselves of this guilt / self-sabotage? The answer is in chapter 6, we spoke about 4 kinds of kripa. First, we have Ishvara kripa. How do we get God's grace? Performing chitta shuddhi sadhanam. For example, karma yoga, upasana. The next one is guru kripa, the grace of the acharya, of the guru. What does this mean? Someone who can pinpoint my blind spots. Someone who can reveal the way I talk. Because when you talk, you actually expose yourself constantly. This is why it's good to speak, because there's no other way to fix our inaccurate thoughts. The next one is Sastra kripa. This tells us how to live in accordance with what is right. The Shastra's purpose is to reveal what is right and what is wrong, what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. So by having the Shastra kripa, I then also remove guilt, because it tells me how to act in this world. Finally, Atma kripa, or the grace of my own mind's efforts. Atma means self, but my own self-grace, my own self-efforts. What does this mean? Taking a firm stand. I can and I will. And nobody is going to stop me. I'm going to take as long as it takes, no matter what obstacles arrive, to break through, to conquer this guilt, to get rid of this guilt. It's taking a firm stand and owning up that the only reason that you got a human body was to purify the mind and to attain what the person so rightfully deserves, which is pure self, non-different from the whole. If you think about it, you wouldn't be a human being if this was not possible, because Ishvara does not make any mistakes. It would rather make you an insect or an animal or some other being. But the fact is, the person is born as a human being. So just by that alone, there is no excuse to run away or to say, I cannot do this and I'm not worthy of doing this. To do that is to say, Ishvara got it wrong. So this means the fact that you are born in a human body means I can and I will. And nothing is going to stop me, including my own guilt or my own past papa. Now, how do you build confidence in yourself in the light of Shastra? By understanding that every single saint has a past and every single sinner has a future. In other words, every single person that we revere at some point had a sinful past. And every single sinner that we think there is no way does have a future. So this means that there is no excuse to say, I cannot do it, because we all have a future and that future is there for you. And how do you take advantage? 4 kripas. Ishvara kripa, Atma kripa, self-effort. You got Guru kripa and Shastra kripa. All 4 graces there to help us. And they will work under one condition. Krishna says, Bhajate mam Ananya Bhakti. So how will these 4 kripas work? Thus remove all guilt and transgressions, or at least low self-confidence. Total surrender to Bhagavan. Not partial. Not, I'm going to surrender to Bhagavan, but I'm going to hold my left foot pinky in the world, just in case there's something there for me, right? Or 1 foot in the world, 1 foot in God. It doesn't work like that. Total surrender. This is called Ananya Bhakti. We talked about Ananya Bhakti in last session, which calls undeviating, non-partial. In other words, my focus is undeviating because it is exclusively on Ishvara. It is not secretly in the world. I like this, but I'm thinking about a girlfriend or a boyfriend. It doesn't work like that. Your job is to what? Focus on the Lord. If the girlfriend, boyfriend is to come or whoever it is, that will happen. That is not your concern. Your only concern is Bhagavan alone. Akadayananda said something very beautiful. He says, nobody can change another person. You can try all you want. You can try for 20,000 years to change another person. You will fail miserably, waste all your energy, and go into punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, trying to change another person. However, if the person chooses to change, then nothing in the universe is going to stop them. You can do all you want to try to stop them, to say, no, you cannot do this. They will find a way to change. So what does this mean? Let the person be as they are. When they decide to change, they will. But before you see the change, you are wasting your time trying to change them. It is up to them. Their prarabdha karma has to take its course, and when it comes to a certain point, then they will come to see certain realities which will instigate karma into the new way of looking at life. In this way, Krishna concludes and says, the person who has decided to surrender to me completely by the means of these 4 kripas, they are as good as a sadhu, a good person. So what does this mean? Even the worst person in the world can still attain liberation by changing their course, by changing their ways of looking at things. So once again, if you think that you've done something that is going to sabotage your efforts, you're literally, it's a joke. Because the worst person means, like the worst things possible. This means that it doesn't matter where you are right now, where you are standing in life. All that matters is where we are facing or going. Tell me this. If you're going from destination A to destination B is the end, and you make a mistake, there's no GPS, right? So mistakes are possible. You go into a wrong road. Do you give up and go home? No, what do? We change course. But no matter what course we change, it is always intentionally going to where? The end. In the same way, no matter how many times we fail, we think we cannot get this, our course is changing for the sake of continuing to go where we initially started, which is the ultimate end, Bhagavan. In this way, it doesn't matter how many times we make a mistake, we simply change course. Why is this person worthy of being called a sadhu? Because sam yagva vastito hisaha. Because they deliberately, thought by thought, brick by brick, put all their efforts into nishtha jnanam, into being established in firm knowledge. How? Deliberately, day by day, little by little, patient, gradual. Furthermore, they throw out unnecessary stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean they throw out physical chairs and TV, and it means they internally detach by seeing that this object which I'm attached to, ultimately there is nothing in it. It's just another object, it's passing, there's nothing special about it. So they throw out unnecessary stuff in their life. This is called mental renunciation. They reprioritize their life, their goals. What does this mean? They have a list of 10 things. Suppose you have 10 things, and all those 10 things are important. So what do? They go like this. A common person is like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 10. So this is a sakama. A nishkama goes like this. Out of these 10 things, which one is, if I could only choose one, which one would it be? And you go number 10. So you make number 10 your number 1. What's the next thing that I need that would include the benefits of all others? Number 3. So you put number 3 as number 2. And you go one more. Yeah, there is one more. And you go, okay, I cannot be without my wife. So you put number... You have to think about it, right? So, and then you say, okay, I'm now going to simplify my life from 10 important things only into 3. So this is what it means to look at your life and reevaluate and say, okay, I understand there's many things that seem very important. But the fact is only few of them make a real difference. You know the rule, 80-20 rule, right?
As long as you're doing the right thing for 80% of the time, you can get away with the 20.
I don't think it's that. Okay, the 80-20 rule means that for all of the efforts that you have, all the benefits, only 20% of all of your work actually made a real difference. You choose very few things and you stick with that, because the rest of them are just there for entertainment and don't actually make a real difference. And finally, what else does this person do? They have a very strong mental attitude which says, I can and I will. Then what happens? This we will see next year. And finally finish. Even if someone of highly improper conduct seeks me without a sense of separation, he is to be considered a good person because he or she is one whose understanding is clear. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.